Welcome to the training video on recipe analysis. Once you have created a recipe, you can use the recipe analysis tool to view the recipe details. This tool works with the filter and the browser windows. They need to be displayed. I will click on the List of Recipes button to filter the recipes into the browser and select the chef salad recipe item. First, we need to display our recipe table. I click into the recipe code field, and now in my window I can see the recipe code, my UPC code number of my recipe, the recipe in section. These are items that go into the recipe. The recipe out section, which is the final product of the recipe. We saw the button List of all recipes, which I use to filter into the browser all of our recipes. Then we have a button List Recipes Without Ratio will display the items in the browser that have a recipe defined but no ratio defined. The ratio may be entered manually when you create your recipe, or you may use one of the tools that are provided. These tools are located in the Ratio Generation Tools section. This would be used when the recipe has more than one produced item, such as cuts of meat. If there is only one produced item, such as the chef salad, then the ratio is 100%. Use retail price calculates the ratio based on the item's retail price. Use TGM calculates the ratio based on the gross margin defined for each produced item. And use poundage calculates the ratio based on the quantities produced of each item. In an example where the final product is more than one item, such as our large meat item that has been divided into steak and roast, I could either have put my ratio in my recipe table with my ratio cost, or I may use the ratio generation tools. So the retail price, the button's used to calculate the rates of the produced items according to the retail prices. If I click on Use Retail Price, are you sure you want to generate the ratio using retail price? Okay. And now I can see my ratio based on the retail price. Or use the gross margin. Now I'm going to use the gross margin, which is entered into each one of the final cuts of meat. And that has changed the profit. Or I can use the poundage, and it will work by the weight that was put into the recipe. Are you sure you want to generate ratio using poundage? This will overwrite your existing ratio. Okay. And we can see now that our ratio has been changed. When the cost changes for the individual items that are used to create a recipe, you may create a future cost batch that will make the changes to the cost of your final product. So in this case, we can see that the DB cost has changed. It's in red. You need to have a batch header that already exists, and then what we can do is either add the current item to the batch, which is the item that's selected in the browser, or add all items in a browser to a batch in the case when your final product might be several items, as in a piece of meat with the smaller cuts. So I'm going to add current item to batch, and now there is an in-store batch that contains my chef salad with a future cost change. This concludes the training video on recipe analysis.